put out, I guess, what they call key design principles today, and I think it was a 3-page document. It goes to things that, like, it will be gender balance, that it will be representative, that it would work with existing institutions and that sort of thing. Does that, I guess, satisfy your request for more detail, or are you still asking for more detail? And if so, what level of detail would satisfy you?
Well, I've written to the Prime Minister. I proposed 15 basic questions, pretty common sense questions that Australians are asking, and the Prime Minister hasn't responded with the detail, even to this very day. And so I think it is incumbent upon the Prime Minister to explain to the Australian public, if you're proposing a very significant change to our founding document, how will it deliver practical outcomes for Indigenous Australians? And if he can't provide that detail, then he needs to explain why. So I think there is a lot of detail that has been requested, and there are many more questions that have been proposed, that have been posed today as a result of the third form of words put forward. And Mr Craven obviously has expressed a view about that, and others will as well.
Voice early in the development of proposed laws and policies, just quite broadly. I just wanted to ask you about that. Obviously, laws and policies, that's quite broad. Do you have any concerns about the scope of that? And do you have any thoughts about how that would work with Cabinet in confidence if you're writing to a group of 24 people very early on in your policy proposals?
Well, we just don't know any of that detail. This is the reason we're at a disadvantage, and the government can't out-legislate the Constitution. That's the reality. So if you're putting forward a form of words which is open to a broad interpretation by the High Court, then the Parliament can't rectify that. That's the issue here. What the government's proposing at the moment is that the Australian public will go to vote on a Saturday, and then from the Monday on, for 6 months, there'll be consultation on the model. Now, that is putting the cart before the horse, and a lot of that detail can be ironed out. It can be put forward, proposed, and people can then make a judgment about whether this is going to improve the situation for Indigenous Australians or whether it's going to put another layer of bureaucracy in place. So I think the design principles are fine, but people want to know the detail, how practically it will work, and as importantly as anything, the considered legal advice around what the words will mean, because the Parliament will necessarily have to be guided by the High Court interpretation. You can legislate for what you want, and just to go beyond the examples you've given, in extremis, if there is an urgent bill that the government needs to bring before the Parliament in relation to all manner of issues, what happens there if there's a truncated process? What would the High Court find in that regard? These are some of the questions potentially that the Solicitor General's advice could address, but of course we don't have that advice.